start, we're going to take our piece of sidewall string and we're going to make a loop, and we're going to bring the string through the loop 2 times. So we're just creating a thick piece of string that won't slip through these big holes, these big sidewall holes. Most lacrosse heads have bigger sidewall holes in the top third or the top half of the sidewall rail than down the side. So look at the size of this sidewall hole right here, and then look at the size of these up here. Normally, when you're stringing a lacrosse head, you're going to, or I guess you may have your top string end and your sidewall string start in the same hole. So you're passing the string multiple times through a sidewall hole, and each time you pass it through, it takes up space. So these holes up top, on near the top of the sidewall rail, are bigger to allow you to pass the string through multiple times. What we don't want is the end of this knot slipping through, or the end of the string or this knot slipping through this hole, because these first few connections of the mesh to the sidewall rail are going to kind of establish the structure of the pocket, and especially of the channel. So we can't have this slip through. So then we tie a big knot at the end of it, and we're going to pass this end through the sidewall hole. So we have the sidewall string. We're going through the same hole that we started, or that we ended the top string with. And we're just going to pull that through, and you see how that knot catches the string from coming through. What we're going to do to make sure this string doesn't slip through, because this knot is huge, and even though I use thick string up here, use paracord, it still might slip through over time. So we're just going to do a loop around nothing, right? A loop around no mesh, just the plastic. And see how we're filling up more space in that hole now? That's what we want. I would suggest starting your sidewall string in the same sidewall hole that you end your top string in. So if you look at it from the inside, there's not very much light coming through there. So like those knots probably aren't going to slip through. That's what we want. So if you've gotten this far, this is your first time stringing a lacrosse stick, then you're doing all right so far. I think the most difficult part is out of the way now. If you have a top string and it looks exactly like this, and it's tight to the touch, the interlocks aren't sliding around and everything, you're doing okay. We'll start by connecting this first diamond, and now we're using the 10 diamond rows for the sidewall. So we used a 9 diamond row for the top string. We're using the 10 diamond rows for the sidewall. I'm going to start, if I'm going to connect this diamond to this hole right here, this one, I'm going to start without even passing the string through this diamond. I'm going to start by pulling the end of this string through this hole from outside to inside. Alright, so I've pretty much just looped this string around this hole. Now I'm going to go up through the face of that 10 diamond piece of mesh, and now I've just made a loop. I've gone out through the outside of that hole, then come up through the face of the mesh. Now I'm pulling the string back out toward the exterior of the head again. Hold the head in the same orientation while you're stringing the entire, like when you're actually stringing. But you may want to string 1 or 2 knots or interlocks and then look at it from this side. Same thing when you're stringing this side, you might want to look and see how you did it there to make sure it's symmetrical. But when you're actually stringing, when you're actually pulling the end of the string through a hole or through a mesh diamond, it's good to do that either from always looking at the front or always looking at the back. For me, it's best to always look at the back. So when you're actually stringing, when you're connecting mesh to sidewall, rail, it helps to look at the back of the head, because you can see the pocket in shape and depth as you're stringing it. From here, you can't really see much. All you can see is the arch to kind of determine the tightness of the channel. But so stringing it from the back is the best. So now, to finish, we're going to string what we call a knot. Some people call this a pull. What we want to do at the top portion of this mesh with these few diamonds, we want to pull them out and down. Instead of going through this way, we're going to go from the outside of this string loop right here, and we're going to go down. So I'm going to go from the outside down, and I'm just going to pull and pull. There's nothing in this loop right here, right? And so what I'm going to end up with is this right here. This is a knot. This is one of the easier ways to build a channel is by using knots. So now what we have in this knot, we have 4 sections of this knot, 4 sections of string. We have this part here going down into the knot. We have the part of the string that's on the exterior of the head. We have the part of the string that's pulling on the mesh. And then we have the end of the string. So what we want to do, we don't want to just pull on the end of the string, because yes, it'll pull down on the mesh, but this loose string up here is trapped up here now. So this loose string is trapped right here because I've pulled the mesh to the sidewall tightly, and that slack, that looseness in the string is nowhere to go. So instead, I'm going to grab the part of the string that's touching the mesh, and I'm going to pull it up. What that's going to do is pull all this slack through and up. So all of the loose string caught in here going through that hole and going up, I'm pulling that, and then I'm keeping it in place with my middle finger on my left hand. So if you played guitar or bass before, or I guess any other instrument where you push strings with your fingers, it makes this a little bit easier. Now I'm going to pull tightly, and now this is tight and this is tight, and I'm going to hold that in place with my left thumb. Until you string more than one knot in a row, this isn't going to stay in place. This will loosen up a little bit, and then you'll trap loose string again. So you don't really want to do that. So we're going to do this one more time. We're going to skip a sidewall hole, and then we're going to string a knot. So we're going to skip this one. We're going to go from the outside in. We're going to go up through the mesh diamond, and then we're going to go from the outside of this loop inside. And now we've created a knot. It's still pretty loose, so leave it loose for a minute and just look at it. And so it should look like this before you start tightening. This is just a stringing, I guess, lesson, and really just mindset, a point of view. Like your mindset when you sit down to string a head is that everything should be in place before anything gets tightened. So if this is wrong, don't pull it tight and then finish stringing. Go back and fix this part, or at least be willing to string it correctly the entire way through so that you establish good habits, and then you can go back and adjust. So again, I'm holding this with my middle finger. I'm going to pull up, and then this is where, depending on how far apart these holes are, how tight or how new the mesh is, it might take some hand strength to pull this down. But you see how there's still a little bit of space in there? That's fine. This is pulled as tightly as it'll go. I'm going to hold that in place with my thumb. So we'll finish the channel, and then we'll work on the shape of the pocket. This one is going to be a low pocket because it's in a surgeon, and surgeons are made for attackmen, and attackmen normally use low or mid-low pockets. So stay tuned for that.